In 1967, the Thinder brothers, Peter and Jens, created the Color Climax Corporation in Copenhagen. It was a pornography company. They started with magazines when pornography was still banned in Denmark. 2 years later, in 1969, Denmark legalized all kinds of, which led the Color Climax Corporation to produce more extreme categories in order to satiate a new market. They kept with magazines, but in the 70s they introduced 8mm loops of porn. As technology advanced, Color Climax Corporation moved with it, changing to videotapes instead of 8mm loops. Color Climax wasn't known just for making your normal though. Due to Denmark legalizing all kinds of, Color Climax went on to make both BC and child films, which they sold from 1969 to 1979. Let's go back a little bit. In 1941, on the 5th of December, Peter Grundtvig Thinder was born. 2 years later, on the 22nd of January, 1944, Jens Thinder was also born. The two brothers were both born in Copenhagen, Denmark. Their father was Bjørn Thinder. The two brothers were always in business together. In 1966, they opened a second-hand bookstore, where using rather suggestive displays they hinted to passers-by that there was more hardcore and explicit stuff that they were selling surreptitiously. As time passed, the explicit magazine/books were in higher and higher demand, higher than they had in stock, so the two brothers decided to become producers. They ceased ordering any new magazines, resulting in the decrease of in stock. Jens became the photographer, while Peter would design the magazines. At this time, the Danish police were oppressing Denmark's so they raided the store. The brothers went on to found Candy Film and make over 1 million videocassettes, 9 million Super 8s, and almost 100 million magazines. The Color Climax Corporation was known for the magazines they made, with two major series, Color Climax and Redux. These magazines were being sold all across the UK, even though hardcore was banned there at the time, so the more extreme images were removed in order to be sold there. As they were making these magazines, they also would produce films, then the films were released, and stills from the films were put in the magazines. The titles on screen are the titles of the magazines they released. The final two are what got the Color Climax Corporation in such hot water, and reasonably. They displayed minors engaged in acts with others, and human and animal pairings. Due to the laws in Denmark at the time, the brothers and the company were immune to any possible legal repercussions. Although teenage was very controversial, the brothers were responsible for worse. They had a film series called Legality, featuring girls younger than 7, and at maximum 11 years old engaging with men, women, or other children. The videocassettes were sold, stills were taken from, and put into the Color Climax magazines. Then they were also sold. The corporation made many films and magazines, with models coming and going quickly. However, one is very much worthy of noting. Bodil Joensen. She was born in Hundig, Denmark, on the 25th of September, 1944, to her Christian mother and father who was in the military, not active in his daughter's life. Her mother was abusive. Bodil would be whipped. Suspected by her mother, Bodil was at a railway station when she was 12. In Bodil's biography it says otherwise, but her mother didn't believe that. When Bodil returned home from the railway station, she told her mother, just for her to get beaten and blamed. Out of anger, she responded saying that she would have with boys when she was older, although knowing what happened later in her life, it seems like that could be fabricated. Bodil left home at 15, finding work at a farm. The farmer, Gunnar Nielsen, said that Bodil was passionate about animals. Gunnar also said that Bodil had an odd obsession with animals breeding, and that she really enjoyed helping the animals with that process. She left the farm eventually, setting up her own farm named Insemination Central. Yeah, she became known for her skill with handling more aggressive animals, such as boars. Her farm business failing, she sought work in the industry when it was still banned. In 1962, when she was 17, She first worked on human-only films. A few years later, she began working with Color Climax Corporation, marking the start of her career in legality. By 1972, she had starred in over 40 films with animals. She was in many films, but she was most known for Animal Farm, having nothing to do with the book. The film included her engaging in acts with eels, pigs, horses, and chickens. The film was smuggled into the UK in 1981 and was banned there. It was rumored to be lost media, but it never was, and was even found in the shock mixtape Fuba, created by Tattooed Dorman. In the 70s, Bodil was living on her own farm with her daughter and her partner. Bodil promoted her farm by allowing sex tourists to visit the farm and create films with the animals there. Her life had begun going downhill, so she lapsed into alcoholism. As she did, she was taking less care of her animals, and in 1981 was raided for animal neglect, imprisoning her for 30 days. The animals were euthanized, and she never mentally recovered from the incident. Now that she couldn't her animals, she replaced it with tranquilizers and alcohol. She gave her final interview in 1980, and died 5 years later on the 3rd of January due to cirrhosis of the liver. The first country known in history to legalize was Denmark. When it was legalized, they legalized all kinds of it, even ones including animals and children. The decision to legalize it wasn't made with public discussion involved, which led to vagueness, allowing children to be taken advantage of. The Color Climax Corporation used that to their benefit, creating media involving children up until 1980, when it was criminalized in Denmark. Now, no media of anyone under the age of 18 can be distributed in Denmark, even though the age of consent there is 15. Zoophilic was not criminalized until 2015. It is now illegal under animal cruelty laws. In 1986, Jens Thind left Candy Film, the company the two brothers founded that produced the film. When he left, the company's publicity was very limited. Peter would not give interviews ever, implying he knows he's guilty. He left 15 years after Jens. In 2001, he went on to spend his time on his interests, including opera and fine wine collecting. Jens Thind died in 2008, on the 20th of December, at the age of 64, in Mallorca, Spain, where he lived the final years of his life. Allegedly, Peter died at the age of 82. The brothers leaving the company didn't immediately result in the closing of it. The company continued even after the criminalization of child pornography, sticking to films with adults and animals. They eventually stopped using animals too. Color Climax Corporation and Redux are, from what I can tell, still a thing, as their website is still up. The production of new content seems to be over, and it seems to have been over 4 years, since 2001. The end of the brothers and creations is satisfying, but that doesn't mean that we should forget it. Two brothers created an outrageously horrific company that exploited children, animals, and mentally unwell people. The website endorses the brothers, as if they were only successful businessmen, and not horrid monsters. At one point in time, child exploitation films were being sold legally, and many didn't bat an eye, with some even paying for it. The way it is now isn't very different. Although criminalized in most places, CSAM and CSEM is being spread like a meme and sold right in front of your eyes.